Starting over at 35. How to catch up financially without panicking. There is a special kind of humiliation that happens when you are 35 years old and start watching personal finance videos. Because every video seems to begin with the same cheerful advice. Start early, invest in your 20s, max out your retirement account, buy a house before prices go crazy, avoid debt, let compound interest do the work. Very efficient, very neat. Very irritating if you are 35 and just got your first real job. Because maybe your life did not follow the standard financial timeline. Maybe you spent your 20s in graduate school. Maybe you pursued a low-paying field because you were young and idealistic and had not yet discovered the full emotional violence of rent. Maybe you immigrated and had to restart your career from zero. Maybe family obligations pulled you in a different direction. Maybe you were working hard the entire time, but not in a way that produced savings. And now you are 35. You finally have a stable salary, maybe $55,000 per year. Not poverty, not wealth, that dangerous middle zone where you can survive, but one or two bad decisions can still trap you for years. You look around, some of your peers already own homes. Some have retirement accounts, some have children, some have 2 cars, a mortgage, and a kitchen island large enough to land a helicopter. Meanwhile, you are sitting there with maybe no savings, maybe debt, maybe an old car, maybe a roommate, maybe a spreadsheet that looks less like a financial plan and more like a cry for help with formulas. And the internet tells you you should have started earlier. Thank you, internet. Extremely useful. This video is for the person who started late, not because they were lazy, not because they spent every weekend buying bottle service, but because life took a longer route. Graduate school, migration, family duty, low-paid meaningful work, delayed stability. The question is not, can I go back and invest at 22? No, you cannot. Unless your brokerage account also provides time travel, in which case please check the expense ratio. The real question is, how do I catch up from here without panicking, pretending, or financially injuring myself trying to look normal? That is the question, and the answer is boring. But boring is not the enemy. Boring is often where freedom hides. Part 1. First, admit that you are late. Let's start with the unpleasant truth. If you start serious investing at 35, you're late compared with someone who started at 22. That is not mindset. That is mathematics. 13 years of compounding is not a small thing. It is not something you erase with positive thinking, a side hustle, or a motivational quote placed over a sunset. You lost time. Say it plainly. You lost time. But late is not the same as doomed. This distinction matters. A lot of people respond to being late in one of 2 stupid ways. The first stupid response is denial. They say, it's fine. Everything happens for a reason. Maybe. But your index fund does not care about your character development. The market does not give you bonus returns because your 20s were emotionally complex. The second stupid response is panic. They say, I need to catch up fast. Then they start chasing risky investments, crypto, options, leverage products. Some miracle stock recommended by a man on the internet whose webcam angle suggests financial distress. That is not catching up. That is gambling with grief. The useful response is calmer and harsher. You say, yes, I am late. And because I am late, I cannot afford to be stupid. That sentence is the foundation. Starting late means you need discipline. not drama. You need consistency, not heroic risk-taking. You need a system that survives bad moods, bad markets, family emergencies, and the sudden desire to buy a car because one co-worker made a comment in the parking lot. Especially that last one. The parking lot is where many financial plans go to die. Part 2. The hidden advantage of having lived cheaply. Now here is the good news. Many late starters already have one advantage. They know how to live on less. Not because they read a minimalist blog, because they had no choice. If you spent your 20s and early 30s on a low salary, in graduate school as an immigrant, or in an unstable job market, you probably learned a few things. You learned to cook. You learned to share rent. You learnt that old furniture still holds objects. You learnt that a phone does not need to be replaced just because the camera can now photograph the pores of the moon. You learnt that an old car is not embarrassing if it starts. Mostly. You learnt how to delay. That skill becomes financially powerful when your income finally rises, because the biggest danger after getting your first real salary at 35 is not poverty. It is emotional revenge spending. You've suffered for years. You finally earn more, so your brain says, now we become a real adult. And apparently being a real adult means financing a sofa, upgrading the car, moving into a nicer apartment, buying professional clothes, eating out constantly, and ordering desserts with the confidence of a person who has never seen a bank statement. This is understandable, but it is dangerous, because when you start late, every new recurring expense is not just a cost, it is a delay. A nicer apartment may not just cost $800 more per month. It may cost years of financial flexibility. A new car payment is not just transportation. It is a monthly subscription to looking like you are doing fine. And that is the trap. At 35, many people do not overspend because they love luxury. They overspend because they are tired of feeling behind. They want proof that the struggle is over. They want visible adulthood. But visible adulthood is expensive. Quiet adulthood is cheaper. Quiet adulthood looks like old car packed lunch, modest apartment, basic clothes, automatic investment transfer, emergency fund, sleeping slightly better. Not glamorous, but effective. The person who keeps living like a cautious graduate student for 5 more years after income rises can change their entire trajectory. Not because they become rich immediately, because their income increases faster than their lifestyle. That gap becomes capital, and capital buys options. Options are better than status. Status needs witnesses. Options work even when nobody claps. Part 3. Debt is not a moral failure, but it is a fire. Now let's talk about debt. If you have no debt, congratulations. You can skip this part emotionally, but maybe not philosophically. If you do have debt, especially high-interest debt, then the first stage of catching up is not investing. It is escape. High-interest debt is not merely bad money management. It is a machine that converts your future salary into someone else's passive income. That is what interest does. It reaches into next month, next year, and the version of you who is already tired. Let's use a harsh example. You are 35. You earn $55,000 per year. Your take-home pay is maybe around $43,000 or $44,000, depending on taxes and location. And you have $80,000 in credit card debt at 20% interest. That is $16,000 a year in interest. Interest alone, before principal, before groceries, before rent, before the old car makes a noise that sounds like a small animal trapped inside the engine. That interest payment is not just a number, it is a predator. So yes, in that situation, the first mission is ugly. You need to throw money at the debt with disturbing aggression. Not because you are morally impure, not because you deserve punishment, because the math is attacking you. If you can live on roughly $2,000 per month and put about $2,000 per month toward the debt, you can begin to suffocate the interest machine. It will still take years. It will feel slow. You will check the balance and feel like nothing is happening. Then eventually something changes. The number starts dropping. Not dramatically, not like a movie montage, more like watching mold dry. But it drops, and that matters, because debt payoff is not only financial, it is psychological. You begin to feel less hunted. You begin to see your labor returning to you. You begin to imagine a future where your paycheck is not already partially owned by the past. That is the first real milestone, not wealth. Breathing room. Part 4. Do not chase. Catch-up returns. Once the debt is gone, the next temptation appears. You will want to invest aggressively, very aggressively, because now you are 39 or 40. You are debt-free, but you look at your portfolio and think, that's it? And the monkey brain wakes up. The monkey brain says, we need faster returns. The spreadsheet says, please calm down. The monkey brain opens YouTube. Dangerous. This is where many late starters damage themselves. They confuse urgency with intelligence. They think, I started late, so I need higher returns. No, you need higher consistency. There is a difference. Higher returns usually come with higher risk. Higher risk can work if you understand it. But many late starters are not taking risk strategically. They are taking risk emotionally. They are trying to punish the past. They are trying to erase regret. Markets are not therapy. Index funds and bonds are boring for a reason. They are not designed to make you feel brilliant. They are designed to keep you from doing something spectacularly stupid during a bad week. A sensible portfolio will not impress people at dinner. That is good. If your portfolio sounds exciting at dinner, something may be wrong. The goal is not to win the investment Olympics. The goal is to build a machine that quietly converts surplus income into future freedom. Every month. Same boring transfer, same boring diversified funds, same boring reinvestment, same boring refusal to become a genius because some asset doubled last year. Boring is not failure. Boring is the point. Part 5. Age 40. The first quiet turnaround. Now imagine the first stage. You are 40. You have survived the first 5 years of your real career. Maybe the debt is gone. Maybe the emergency fund exists. Maybe your investment account is finally no longer embarrassing. It is not impressive yet, but it is alive. This is a strange psychological stage, because externally your life may still look unimpressive. Same apartment, same lunch container, same old car with one door that requires emotional negotiation. But internally something changes. You are no longer financially standing on a trap door. A broken phone is annoying, not catastrophic. A medical bill is stressful, but not instantly ruinous. A bad month does not destroy you. This is the first taste of financial power, not luxury, resilience. And resilience is underrated because it does not photograph well. Nobody posts just achieved a 6-month emergency fund, feeling moderately less terrified. Although maybe they should. That is a healthier flex than most things online. At 40, you may still feel behind. That is normal, but your direction matters more than your comparison group. The person who looks ahead calmly often beats the person who looks sideways constantly. Part 6. Age 45. The dangerous middle. At 45, the game becomes more psychological. Your salary may be higher, maybe $70,000. Your investment contributions may be meaningful now. You are no longer in survival mode, and that is exactly why this period is dangerous, because once survival pressure drops, status pressure rises. You start noticing your peers, better houses, newer cars, nicer vacations, children in expensive programs, kitchen renovations, appliances that look like they require software updates. And you begin to ask, am I being responsible or am I just being cheap? That is a real question. Not every upgrade is foolish. Comfort matters. Family matters. Health matters. Joy matters. The point is not to live like a hostage to your spreadsheet. The point is to understand whether an upgrade solves a real problem or performs a social role. A reliable car may be reasonable. A luxury car to repair your self-esteem is expensive therapy with tyres. A better apartment may improve your life. A prestige neighbourhood to impress people you barely like is just rent with insecurity attached. This is the age when many late starters finally have enough income to make large mistakes. At 25, you may not have qualified for the mistake. At 45, the bank may approve it enthusiastically. That does not mean it is wise. Banks approve many things. That is how they eat. So at 45, the real skill is not frugality. It is discernment. Spend where life genuinely improves. Reject spending that only repairs status anxiety. Your future self cannot retire on other people's impressions. Part 7. The House Question. Now let's talk about housing. This is where personal finance people become very confident and very annoying. Some people say, always buy. Others say, always rent and invest the difference. Both groups say this with the calm certainty of people who have never had to move because a landlord suddenly discovered market rent. The truth is more context dependent. For a late starter, housing is not just a spreadsheet decision. It is also a stability decision. If you buy too early, you may trap yourself. You reduce flexibility. You take on maintenance. You may concentrate too much wealth in one asset. You may buy emotionally because you feel embarrassed about renting at 45. That is dangerous. But if you wait too long, you may also carry housing anxiety deep into middle age. Rent increases, landlord decisions, school districts, moving costs, the quiet exhaustion of not fully controlling your shelter. So the question is not, is paying cash for a home always mathematically optimal? No, often it is not. The better question is, what kind of risk am I trying to remove? If you buy a modest home in cash at 50 after building a strong portfolio, you are not necessarily maximizing returns. You are buying certainty. You are saying, this part of my life is no longer negotiable. No landlord, no mortgage rate anxiety, no monthly housing payment, just taxes, maintenance, insurance, and the occasional mysterious leak that appears when life is going too peacefully. That certainty has value, especially for people who started late and spent decades feeling financially unstable. But the key word is modest. A paid-off house can be freedom. An oversized house can be a monument to insecurity. The house should reduce pressure, not become a museum of every status wound you collected in your 30s. Part 8. Age 50. The boring machine starts working. At 50, if things have gone reasonably well, the machine becomes visible. Maybe your salary is now around $83,000. Maybe the portfolio is several $100,000. Maybe you bought a modest home. Maybe you did not. Either way, something important happens. Your financial life is no longer built only on labour. Your savings begin producing their own movement. Investment returns may still be volatile. Markets will still throw tantrums. But your money is no longer sitting quietly like emergency supplies in a cupboard. It is working. Badly some years, beautifully other years. Like most employees. This is also when you must avoid lifestyle creep disguised as a maturity. People say, at this age I deserve comfort. True. But comfort is not the same as luxury, and luxury is not the same as freedom. A comfortable chair is comfort. A house too large to maintain is work wearing a crown. A reliable car is comfort. A prestige vehicle that makes you nervous in parking lots is emotional debt. At 50, the goal is not to prove that you made it. The goal is to make the next decade less fragile. Because this is also when life becomes less forgiving. Parents age? Health becomes less theoretical. Career energy may decline. Burnout becomes real. The body starts sending calendar invitations you did not accept. So the portfolio is not just for retirement. It is for flexibility. Maybe you reduce work. Maybe you change roles. Maybe you help family. Maybe you take a sabbatical. Maybe you say no to a toxic boss with a calmness that feels almost spiritual. That is what capital does. It gives you the ability to say no without immediately falling through the floor. Part 9. Age 55. Quiet wealth. At 55, a late starter who stayed consistent may begin entering a strange zone. Externally, life may still look ordinary. Same house, same habits, same basic clothes. Maybe still the same car. Because apparently vehicles become immortal if you are stubborn enough. But internally, the numbers are different. An emergency no longer destroys the plan. A market downturn hurts, but it does not erase your identity. A job problem becomes serious, but not instantly existential. This is quiet wealth, not Instagram wealth, not yacht wealth, not passive income guru standing beside rented sports car. Wealth, quiet wealth, the kind nobody notices because it looks suspiciously like ordinary life. And that is the best kind for many middle-class people. Because attention is expensive, status invites comparison. Comparison invites spending. Spending invites fragility. Fragility invites panic, and panic ruins plans. Quiet wealth avoids the theatre. It does not need applause. It only needs time. Part 10. Age 60. The point of the whole exercise. At 60, the question changes. Earlier, the question was, how do I catch up? Now the question becomes, what did I buy with all that restraint? Because if the answer is only a large number on a screen, that is not enough. A portfolio is a tool. It is not a religion. Money should eventually become options. Maybe you continue working because you like the work. Maybe you reduce your hours. Maybe you mentor younger people. Maybe you move closer to family. Maybe you leave a job that became stupid. Many jobs become stupid eventually. Sometimes the institution changes. Sometimes leadership changes. Sometimes you change. Sometimes everybody simply discovers new software and morale collapses. Whatever happens, financial stability gives you room to respond. That is the point. Not to become rich looking. Not to win retirement. Not to prove that starting late did not hurt. It did hurt. But you built enough stability that the past no longer controls every decision. That is a serious achievement. Part 11. Age 65. Last day of work. Now imagine age 65, your final day of work. Maybe your salary is around $130,000 by then. Maybe your portfolio is somewhere between $2.5 and $4 million, depending on returns, contribution rates, inflation, job stability, and whether life behaved itself. Life rarely behaves itself. But suppose you made it. You walk out of work, no debt, paid off home or at least stable housing, a portfolio large enough to support you, emergency funds, options. You did not become the richest person among your peers. Some earned far more, some had flashier careers, some had bigger homes, some bought the luxury cars earlier. But you reached the finish line with something many people never get: enough. Enough is underrated. Enough means your life is no longer managed entirely by fear. Enough means you can make decisions slowly. Enough means you do not need to monetize every hobby, impress every stranger, or treat every market downturn like the universe personally insulted you. Enough is not dramatic, but it is powerful. And yes, maybe some ridiculous part of your monkey brain still wants the gold watch. Fine. The goal was never to eliminate desire completely. That is monk cosplay. The goal was to stop desire from driving the car. If you buy the watch because your plan is secure and you genuinely enjoy it, that is one thing. If you buy it at 45 because you feel invisible, that is another. Same object, different psychology. Personal finance is full of this. The math matters, but the motive matters too. Part 12. The real lesson. So what is the actual lesson for someone starting at 35? It is not, just work harder. People say that when they have no useful analysis. It is not, follow your dreams. Dreams are nice, but rent has administrative power. It is not, take massive risks. That is how regret becomes bankruptcy. The real lesson is quieter. If you start late, you need to become very hard to financially manipulate. Hard to manipulate by banks. Hard to manipulate by lifestyle inflation. Hard to manipulate by co-workers' opinions. Hard to manipulate by shame. Hard to manipulate by your own monkey brain. That means keep fixed costs low, destroy high-interest debt, build emergency cash, invest consistently, increase income where possible, buy stability carefully, avoid status traps, and most importantly, do not try to compensate for a late start by pretending to be someone who started early. You are not 22. Good. You may have other advantages. You may know how to live cheaply. You may understand uncertainty. You may have emotional endurance. You may be less impressed by luxury because you have already seen how fragile appearances can be. Those things count. They do not erase lost time, but they help you use the remaining time well. And that is the only timeline you actually have. Closing starting late is painful because it forces you to live with arithmetic and regret at the same time. That is not easy. But it is also clarifying. You stop having time for financial theatre. You stop confusing adulthood with consumption. You stop buying things just because your younger self felt deprived. You begin to understand that catching up is not one heroic move. It is a long sequence of boring decisions made while your ego complains in the background. Old car, packed lunch, paid off debt, index funds, emergency cash, modest home, lower fixed costs, quiet compounding, nothing glamorous, nothing viral. just the slow construction of a life that becomes harder and harder to push around. So yes, if you are 35 and just starting your real financial life, you are late. But you are not finished. Late means you must be honest. Late means you must be disciplined. Late means you cannot afford financial cosplay. But late also means you may finally understand what this is really about. Not becoming rich, not looking successful, not proving everybody wrong, just buying enough freedom that your future self can breathe. And honestly, that is not a bad thing to build, even if you had to start late.
Hi, I'm the video creator. I'm brand new to doing this, so thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe.